In the southwest of Amadisha, Galad is riding with a few fellow Whitecloaks to a manor house that used to belong to the king, and that now serves as headquarters for the Children of the Light. He plans to kill the Lord Captain Commander, Eamon Valda, for making an alliance with the Seanchon, but most importantly because he thinks Valda raped and killed Morgaze, the last of which we know is not true, but the first one is. He challenges Valda to a trial by combat and kills him. Now, by law, he must become the new Lord Captain Commander, by virtue of defeating the previous one in a trial under the light, and all of the children present acclaim him as such. Deep into Tarabon, Rodel Ituralde is working to instill rebellion against the Seanchon. In the village of Serrana, Ituralde defeats the local garrison, and then he burns the storages. Now he plans to turn back, gathering his men, so that the Seanchon will follow him to Arad Doman, into a trap he has previously set. In Ebudar, High Lady Suruth is worried about Tuon's disappearance, for it is her responsibility, and because others may begin to suspect she is a Dark Friend. She has a meeting with the Captain General in which she finds about Rodel Ituralde's rebellion in Tarabon. Enraged, she orders troops to be sent west to take Ituralde's head, and when she comes back to her rooms, Semirak presents herself to tell Suruth she massacred the whole Seanchon imperial family back in Siandar, the capital, leaving a power vacuum that wreaks havoc all across the continent. The Forsaken then offers to make Suruth herself Empress, but in order to get that, Semirak requires her to kill Tuon. After initial doubts, Suruth agrees. In Tar Valon, Pevara visits Tadama Wrath, the new highest, title given to the head of the Red Aja, to propose the idea of Red Sisters bonding Ashaman. She agrees and insists Elida must not know of this until it's already done. After that, she meets with Yugiri and Siain, two of her fellow Black Aja hunters. Siain found out Elida's original order was not to hunt for the Black Aja, but to find proof of Olverin's treasonous correspondence with the Dragon Reborn. Hence, their doubt about whether Elida is Black Aja herself gets stronger. They are afraid they expose themselves to the Black Aja needlessly. And rightly so, for Olverin is now aware they are hunting the Black Aja, and is planning her retaliation. Egwene wakes up after being captured at North Harbor and dosed with Forkroot. She is taken to the White Tower, where she is told Elida will not execute her, but she will be demoted back to novice and held prisoner. She warns the Mistress of Novices about her dream of the Seanchon attacking Tar Valon, and that same night she enters the Leiron Riad to let Swan Sanche know she's still alive. In the rebel Aes Sedai camp, Swan wakes up and rushes to tell the Sitters the news and to communicate Egwene's orders not to rescue her, and to prepare for a meeting of the whole within Leiron Riad the next day. Meanwhile, Elida is having troubles with the streets, the sewers, and, most importantly, with the increasing presence of the Dark One in the world, that now enables dead people to be seen briefly everywhere. Galina Casban, who was casually riding outside Malden, is kidnapped by Gol and an Ashaman, who take her to Perrin to answer questions about the layout of the Shaido camp. Perrin also gives Galina a message for Fail, and the Ashaman takes her back to the town, but she secretly plans to kill Fail and escape from Malden. Concurrently, the Forsaken meet at Leiron Riad, where Moridin orders them to find the remaining seals of the Dark One's prison, but not to harm Rand in the process. Mat and Perrin, though, are to be killed. Speaking of Perrin, he meets with the leaders of the Seanchan army found by Talanvor at the end of last book, and he chooses to make a demonstration of the accuracy of the two Rivers bowmen, making them shoot arrows into a piece of wood from afar. To get a better effect, he also orders an Ashaman to set the wood on fire, to show he also has male channelers under his command. Perrin asks for massive quantities of Forkroot tea to feed the Shaido Wise Ones, so that they become unable to use the One Power. The Shauntan agree, so all of them travel to the town of Almizar in Amadisha, where he uses the safe passage signed by Surith, stolen from Masema's tent by Berylane, to get the fork root and some Rakan units. Before leaving Almizar, he is shot by assassins that miss his heart narrowly. While he is being healed by an Ashaman, he wonders if the assassination attempt was the Forsaken's work. When everything's ready, Perrin travels to the outskirts of Malden, where he orders the fork root to be poured into the aqueduct that provides fresh water to the city, hoping that it will hinder the Shido Wise One's ability to channel. He also sends a small force led by Cyanid Sadai to infiltrate the town through the very same aqueduct. Afterwards, he goes back to his camp to organize his coalition with the Shauntan for the attack on Malden. Inside the town, Theril, an Amadishan boy taken as Gaishane, steals the Oath Rod from Therava's tent and gives it to Fail. Galina Kasban somehow learns that Fail possesses the rod, so she tells her to meet her inside the city to surrender the rod in exchange for help to escape Malden. The next day, they meet in the basement of a ruined house inside the city, and once she is given the rod, Galina tricks Fail and the others, trapping them below broken boards and remnants of the house, and fleeing Malden, just when Perrin is about to begin the attack. But, unbeknownst to her, Theril, the same boy that stole the Oath Rod, had followed Fail to be sure she was safe, and witnessed Galina's treason. So he rushes down the street in the search for help, and so Roland, the Aiel that befriended Fail, comes to take her and her friends out. Concurrently, Perrin leads his coalition alongside Masema's madmen and the Shauntan army against the Shido, slowly overwhelming the spearman lines until a breach is opened for him to rush to the gates. When he's about to pass them, he's lucky enough to find Fail there, being carried out of the city by Roland, who was able to rescue her from the basement. Not knowing what happened and taking Roland as just another Shido trying to harm Fail, Perrin rushes to meet him and bashes his skull with his hammer, killing Roland in just one blow. Fail feels sorry for Roland and shame, but there's no time for tears since they have to save all of the Gaishane from the remaining Shido, and ultimately she's relieved that her husband was finally able to rescue her. Meanwhile, Matt is still within Valan Luca's traveling show that is just leaving the town of Jurador. Along the way, Matt has to put up with the Aes Sedai in the show acting recklessly and being ungrateful to Matt, even though he saved them from being made Damani, for which he pulls one of them to his lap and spanks her, which was very satisfying to a reader tired of Aes Sedai arrogance. Aludra, the last Illuminator, finally reveals her plans to Matt. She devised a prototype for building cannons, so far unknown in Third Age warfare. She calls them dragons, and the cannonballs dragon sex. Matt tells her he knows someone who can get them made, meaning Rand, so she agrees to leave the traveling show with Matt when he does. During the trip, Egeanin and Bael Daman marry each other, while Matt bonds with Tuon, to whom she buys a horse. On their way to the northeast, they keep seeing signs that Tarmangaden is approaching, like food rotting before time, and visions of dead people walking, even an entire village, a ghost town that disappears as they watch. At passing through the ruins of an ancient city, Matt remembers, through the memories of dead men inserted on his mind, the time when it was inhabited, and he guesses that all people that go through the redstone doorframe are linked to the Ylfin, that being how they collect their memories. Speaking of the Ylfin, a little later on, Matt asks Tom what's written on the letter that the Gleeman is always reading and rereading. Tom hands it to Matt, and he is in shock at finding it was written by Moraine, and more so when he reads that she is not dead, as everybody thought, but rather trapped in the Ylfin's dimension. They both decide to go rescue her eventually. At the town of Madarin, they find there are Shauntan soldiers looking for Tuon, probably under orders from Surith, since they proclaim they look for an impostor posing as the daughter of the 9 moons, so they agree to leave the traveling show to avoid them. Upon reaching the northern Altaran border, Tuon has grown so attached to Matt that she lets him kiss her. She's impressed by Matt's leadership when Captain Salmanis surprisingly shows up, leading several thousands of the band's crossbowmen and horsemen. Their appearance must be an effect of Matt's Taviran pull, for they really come in handy, since the passage into Andor that Matt was looking for was blocked by a landslide, and to pass through, he will have to fight the Seanchan. Matt initiates a campaign in northern Altara, hitting several Seanchan outposts, using guerrilla warfare tactics to great success. But he's unaware that Furik Karid, the Deathwatch God officer tasked with finding Tuon, is tracking his movements and is on his way to meet him. Karid finally locates Matt's camp and is more than shocked when he learns that Matt is willing to let him take Tuon to Ebudar, for she trusts Karid. Since setting her free was the last remaining piece to fulfill the foretelling Tuon received, she acknowledges Matt as her husband, completing the Seanchan marriage ceremony. But a 10,000-strong army is coming from the north, with orders from High Lady Surith to kill Tuon. So Matt urges Karid to take Tuon to Ebudar, while he uses the bands to cut off their access to Karid's guard, allowing them some extra time to escape. Even though he's outnumbered, Matt manages to defeat the attackers in a battle that I will cover on its own video. Upon reaching Ebudar, Tuon learns of her mother's demise in Seanchan and steps in as the new empress. May she live forever. Her first action is to reduce Surith into slavery for her attempt to kill her. In Caemlyn, Elaine faces the siege of the city from Armil Amarn. Birgitta, who leads the defending forces as Captain General, receives reinforcements from Arangil at the last moment, improving her chances to withstand the siege, although still outnumbered. Meanwhile, studying the terangrial cache she took from Ebudar, Aviendha tells Elaine that she can somehow determine what purpose was each of those made for, just by holding them. Aviendha studies them all, giving each time a more confident answer, but before she can finish, the wise ones from her clan come for her. It seems Rand has summoned their presence. Elaine is then left to face the siege alone. I have to say, her relationship with Aviendha is much better developed than that with Egwene. The daughter heir hires Hark, a criminal, to follow Doilin Mellar, the captain of her guard, since she suspects he's a dark friend. Hark finally comes back with the location of a house Mellar visits, which turns out to be a Black Asha hideout. So Elaine goes with Birgitta and other Aes Sedai to arrest them, but there are far more Black Asha sisters in the place than she can handle, so she ends up as a prisoner. As I have said in my video about the siege of Caemlyn, link above, Birgitta gathers a rescue party, and with the help of the Seafolk Windfinders, she is able to free Elaine. Then, taking the chance, they strike Aramila's forces from the rear, thus breaking the siege. Elaine takes her rival claimant captive, and a few days later she receives the leaders of the rest of the Andoran noble houses, who decide to stand behind Trakand, effectively ending the succession war and securing the Lion Throne for Elaine. On the outskirts of Tar Valon, the whole of the Tower of the rebel Aes Sedai gathers for a meeting, because the Ashaman Narishma comes to propose the bonding of 51 Ashaman by the Aes Sedai, to balance the 51 Aes Sedai bonded by orders of Loghain. The Aes Sedai agree to this, and in the middle of the discussion, Arangar tries to spy, but is detected by Narishma, exposing herself, and being discovered by Romanda, one of the Yellow Sitters, who orders her capture, but Arangar manages to flee the camp. Concurrently, inside the White Tower, Egwene was reduced to novice and forced to drink Forkrut's tea daily to hinder her channeling. She must attend lessons like any other novice, but she manages to resist, sowing discomfort among the sisters towards Elida, while also refusing to defer to any Aes Sedai, clinging to her place as Amerlin's seat, which causes her many punishments every day, but Egwene firmly withstands the strappings, slowly earning the respect not only of the other novices, but also from the other Aes Sedai, including the Mistress of Novices, and thus slowly undermining Elaita's position as Amyrlin. Rand is still in Lord Algarin's manor house in the Tyrant countryside. Here he receives Loghain, who brings news. The Ashaman are all over Arad Doman, even those bonded to Aes Sedai, trying to stop the chaos sown by Grendel. He also counsels Rand to be wary of Masrim Taim, who most certainly is a dark friend. Loyal's mother also arrives, accompanied by Aerith, Loyal's bride-to-be, and Elder Haman, an Ogier authority, who performs the ceremony marrying Loyal and Aerith. Rand congratulates Loyal, but sadly there's no time for more celebration. For well over 100,000 Trollocs and Murderel invade the manor, forcing the Ashaman and the Aes Sedai present to fight them off with one power. In a moment of weakness, Lews Therin Telamon seizes control of the one power from Rand and shows him new weaves meant as weapons, namely Deathgates and Blossoms of Fire that bring destruction among the Shadow Spawn. After the battle is over, Lan tells Nynaeve he's becoming restless about taking the battle to the Borderlands, since Rand doesn't seem to care. So she takes him to World's End, the westernmost point of Saldaea, and leaves him there to find his way to his homeland. On nearby towns, Nynaeve spreads the word that the legitimate king of Malkir is rising to fight the last battle, so that Malkir people may join him. She then goes back to Rand, and together they go to Tyr, where the stone had been under siege by rebel tyrant lords. But the siege was just lifted by negotiations. Lord Darlin Cisnera, the steward for the Dragon Reborn in Tyr, appointed by Rand himself, will become king of Tyr, but still sworn to the dragon. After getting that settled, Rand gives orders to gather all available fighting men to travel to Arad Doman to help bring order to the country. At the same time, he sends Loghain as messenger to a seafolk meeting in Ilian, where he interrupts the leaders to ask for ships to carry supplies for the hungry people of Arad Doman. Rand's next step is to move to a manor house in northeastern Altara with Min and an escort of maidens, Aes Sedai and some Ashaman. He will supposedly meet the Daughter of the Nine Moons, but since he suspects a trap, he is accompanied into the manor by Nynaeve, Cadsuane, Min, Loghain and Narishma. From the house, 3 pairs of Suldam and Damani come forth, and a girl matching Tuon's appearance, but as she gets closer, Cadsuane's Terangriel activates and cancels the disguise, concealing the woman's real figure, thus revealing that she was actually Semirag posing as Tuon. The revelation automatically triggers the battle, Ashaman and Aes Sedai against Suldam and Damani. The numbers favor Rand's entourage, so they quickly defeat the Shonchan, taking Semirag prisoner. But as the fire burns out, Rand discovers that the Forsaken was able to hurl a fireball at him, searing his left hand completely. If you've watched my video on the Shadow Rising, where I also talk about some Norse mythology references on the Wheel of Time, you'll remember that I mentioned how Perrin mirrors the god Thor in some ways, while Matt reflects Odin in many. Well, Knife of Dreams confirmed what I've been thinking, that Rand is a parallel to the god Tyr, the last of the 3 main gods in Norse mythology. While Perrin wields a hammer, just like Thor, and Matt a spear, like Odin, Rand's weapon of choice is a sword, just like Tyr. Moreover, Tyr also loses a hand according to Norse tradition, albeit in different circumstances. Thus, it becomes evident that the 3 Taviran boys must be present at Tarmangedon to make a strong parallel to the triad of Nordic gods who will fight in Ragnarok. Rand also suffered an injury to his eyes. Nevertheless, he orders the captured Suldam to be returned to Ebudar, with the message that he still wants to meet with the real Tuon. A short time later, Bevara and Tarna lead 6 Red Aja Aes Sedai to the Black Tower, where they ask Mazrum Taim for permission to bond Ashaman as warders. Taim says he agrees, but he seems to be mocking them, while at the same time abandoning his mask, plainly stating that he serves the Dark One now. The ramifications of this remain to be seen. I am glad to say this was one of the best books in the series so far, heavily loaded with action on all fronts. Sadly, it is the last one entirely written by Robert Jordan, may he rest in peace. Now enter Brandon Sanderson. I'll be soon analyzing how well did he manage to wrap everything up, so if you're interested, then by all means join me on my next video. Consider subscribing and leaving a like if you like my content, and I'll see you in the next one.